Throughout the several ages of the comic book genre, the characters that led to its growth and ultimate boom were that of white heterosexual males. Of the vast variety of companies making up the medium, there are two that have reigned above the rest, those being Marvel and DC. Whether through the plethora of movies containing their many pantheons of storylines, or just the mere iconography of their material, they have cemented themselves in American culture. When it comes to pivotal characters in which depict key transitions into a more diverse society, none outshine that of T'Challa, the Black Panther, and Diana Prince, most commonly known as Wonder Woman. T'Challa, created by comic titans Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, first appeared in Fantastic Four number 52 in July of 1966. Widely acclaimed as the first mainstream black superhero, T'Challa depicted a king of the utmost intelligence who reigned over a highly advanced, discreet civilization residing in the continent of Africa. Right off the bat, this brief description disregards a plethora of stereotypes that have leached onto the race throughout our nation's history. Here represents not only the epitome of a character of African descent, but the human race in general. He is one of the smartest men in his universe and rules one of the strongest nations on the planet. A truly perfect combination of both brute and brawn.
I love Marvel all my life. As a young person, it was basically, one of the first places that I really learned to think about writing. And so any opportunity to write for Marvel, I just couldn't turn it down. Well, I think if you're like a young man in West Baltimore, and all around you is a considerable amount of powerlessness, you probably have an attraction to people with power. I could lose myself for long periods of time with comic books. I never had enough money to buy enough. That's what I remember, just not being able to buy enough. Because I didn't just collect the issues as they came out. I collected back issues. I used to keep an inventory of all my comic books. I have an inventory. I put them in plastic bags with the blackboards and everything. The Black Panther is T'Challa, who is the king of the mythical kingdom of Wakanda. T'Challa is supposed to be this genius who can do everything. Fighter / genius / whatever. Basically the dream of nerds everywhere. And he's African, to be clear, but there had not been a black superhero in comic books quite like him before. So yeah, it was tremendously radical. I always perceived Marvel and comic books in general as incredibly diverse, as compared to when you cut on the television, or when you went to the movies. When I came of age, there were black superheroes. They just were in the comic books, and very rarely did they spend much time discussing what their presence meant. They just sort of existed. That was tremendously radical for me as a young boy. But as a creator, you can only tell yourself so many times, it's so cool to have this black dude doing X, Y, Z. In fact, you really shouldn't be telling yourself that at all. It's so irrelevant as to whether it works or not. When you're writing, you don't really think too much. I don't think too much about diversity. It has to be good. It's a very backwards, in my mind, process of writing. It's the process of writing, I guess screenplays, of writing comic books, but it's not the process of writing journalism. I've had to totally rethink certain things. If I want to introduce somebody, say a villain in a scene, or even T'Challa in a scene, that's tough to do. Because in fact, before I even thought of the words, I had to think of what actually happened in the scene. So what was going on? What is T'Challa doing? Where is T'Challa? And then you can put the words in afterwards. So it's different. Comic books work on action. Comic books work on violence and people punching people. And that sounds like, the obvious thing, but it's not something that I immediately thought about when, I signed up. I don't know, I want this to be, the best Black Panther run there's been. I want this to be one of the best runs that Marvel has ever done. And I want to elevate the stature of the character.
Be it molded through clay or with the blood of Zeus flowing through her veins, no matter the origin, Diana Prince DC's Amazon is a true sight to behold. Created by writer and psychologist William Moulton Marston, Wonder Woman's debut spoke not of equality per se, but of superiority. As many of you may know, Wonder Woman hails from an enigmatic island known to its inhabitants as Themyscira, its inhabitants in which are a race of Olympian-esque women proficient in the art of war and advancement, which in their viewpoint excludes man and his plagues. Wonder Woman's first appearance took the classic cliche of a damsel in distress and turned it on its head. Instead of a woman, a man by the name of Steve Trevor found himself in need of a hero who soon came in the form of Diana Prince. Much of her iconography depicts her breaking out of chains or various forms of bondage, and naturally one could draw various conclusions as a result. Many would argue that it was meant to symbolize how women broke their metaphorical bonds, but others would say that her creator, Marston, had trouble separating his feminist ideals from his personal fetishes. Whichever you truly believe in, neither deter the fact that she has stood the test of time. Wonder Woman has served 75 years as a beacon of hope for both men and women alike, alongside what is commonly known as the remainder of DC's Trinity, Superman and Batman. Though short-lived, she even held the title of an honorary ambassador of the United Nations. Unfortunately, there are very few other female heroines that are household names, but if there had to be one diplomat, then look no further, for you have found the perfect candidate. Arguably one of the most iconic characters ever created, Spider-Man, also known as Peter Parker, took the world by storm in his debut back in 1962 and has seemingly never left the center stage of Marvel's universe. That is, until 2011. Now, before we get into the fall of this icon, allow me to preface a crucial concept of his departure. It's not the same Peter Parker fans have come to know and love, technically. In the early 2000s, Marvel was having major financial struggles and began experimenting as a result. One of said experiments was creating a whole new universe to complement the one that had been established for decades. The thought behind this universe was to forge a starting point for new fans who'd like to read some of these characters without the need for the vast amount of knowledge from their long history of stories. Needless to say, Spider-Man was chosen to get the ball rolling. Highly acclaimed writer Brian Michael Bendis was practically given the keys to break new ground on this new Ultimate Universe. Ultimate Spider-Man went on from the year 2000 to 2011, consisting of nearly 200 issues, so as you can imagine, it was in fact a major success which yielded much buzz, whilst quite a few other titles in the Ultimate line failed. In the year 2011, New York's most beloved hero fell to the hands of one of its greatest villains. The Ultimate Spider-Man was killed by the Ultimate Green Goblin. During their climactic battle, Peter's mask had been discarded and his identity revealed to the world. For some time afterwards, Marvel's New York was in mourning after the loss of their champion. Spider-Man's sacrifice impacted and inspired many both inside the panels as well as in the real world, one of which was a young man named Miles Morales of both black and Hispanic descent. To make a pretty long and complicated story short, Miles was bit by a similar radioactive spider to his predecessor and decided to take on the mantle of Spider-Man, much to the dismay of many Spider-Man fans once again, both in and out of the comics. A title originally owned by Carol Danvers of little to no relation, this incarnation weaves a tale of a Muslim fangirl with the purest of intentions and aspirations. Created in 2014 by comic writer G. Willow Wilson and editor Sana Amanat, Kamala Khan discovered she had the abilities to stretch and grow her body to great lengths after exposure to Terrigen Mist. Terrigen being an element that unlocks potential in remarkable humans, a concept that we'll go over more thoroughly shortly. Naturally, as many good-spirited individuals have before, she decides to don a moniker and fight crime as Miss Marvel in homage to her beloved hero. Her religion is a major part throughout her journey of superheroics, but it's not the sole factor. Miss Marvel isn't merely another token, but a realistic and lovable young heroine who takes inspiration from various mentors, including Shaikh Abdullah, forgive me for the pronunciation, as well as fan-favorite Wolverine, and applies their lessons to her own life. Even now, Miss Marvel has brought together a team of fellow teenage heroes, one of which being Miles Morales, who are hell-bent on eradicating intolerance and generally looking out for the little guy. One of their latest feats was cracking down on a young women trafficking operation, as well as a militant invasion of a small Middle Eastern village in which they taught its female populace that they can in fact be champions themselves and stand for their God-given rights. A natural-born leader for both inside the pages as well as outside.
And I want to talk about Miss Marvel, which is just a wonderful comic book.
Yeah.
And so this is Kamala Khan, is that? And
is
she
Kamala Khan,
is
yep.
the first Muslim American comic book hero. And it's sort of based on your life, yes? Her backstory.
There's some similarities.
Because you are not a superhero. You have
I'm definitely not a superhero.
Gotcha.
No one would want me to rescue them from anywhere,
Okay.
except for maybe like a cheeseburger or something. I'll handle it. I got you.
I love your help. Yeah.
No, I mean, there was the writer, G. Wilson, and myself sort of went back and forth about who we wanted Kamala Khan to be, and it was very much about breaking stereotypes and about the idea of changing people's perceptions of Muslim Americans. But beyond that, we had a very universal approach about the concept of kind of redefining yourself, finding who you are based on your own terms and not listening to other people's definitions of the labels and categories that you belong to.
And this has been an incredibly successful book, sold really well. I mean, do you think that basically did you come to the understanding of, there's an audience out there that has just been so thirsting for a comic book character who represents them a bit better?
Oh my God, absolutely. I think after this character in particular, people came up to me, came up to Willow, and they said, finally, we have a character out there, not just a superhero, but a character out there that we can connect with, and that my young daughter, my young son can aspire to become one day. You don't have to look a particular way to be powerful and to be a hero, and that's why it was so important. So the underlying meaning, so many people have connected with. I've had people from all backgrounds say that they feel like they are Kamala Khan, and that's amazing.
And your job is sort of to make Marvel a little bit more representative. Is it both in its characters and its creators? Because I know it's not just about, obviously, the characters, but you've brought in a sort of more diverse background of comic book creators.
Yeah, I mean, I think my job is really about looking at our content and our characters and trying to have it and find the potential with it and find a way to position it so that more people end up coming and becoming comics fans and superhero fans. So that is definitely the larger aspect of it. But with that comes, how do you start attracting newer audiences? How do you start, telling that young black girl that she can also be a superhero? And that really comes with the way that you paint your characters. And that comes, yes, with diversity, but also with authenticity, and by telling stories that are very true to who a human being is, not who a black American is or a Muslim American. You have to sort of dig deeper and find out, the heart of those characters.
Mutation. It is the key to our evolution. It has enabled us to evolve from a single-celled organism into the dominant species on the planet. This process is slow, normally taking thousands and thousands of years. But every few hundred millennia, evolution leaps forward.
An allegorical soap opera is probably the perfect description to sum up the many tales involving Marvel's mutant population throughout the years. Mutants are humans born with a special gene called the X gene, which grants them all kinds of extravagant abilities such as telekinesis, matter manipulation, non-vulnerability, the list goes on and on and on. Mutantkind is seemingly at constant odds with the remainder of the human race. Mutants are branded as dangerous abominations and are treated as such primarily due to how they may appear or any other difference really. By now I hope those of you following along at home are beginning to draw certain parallels to our own history. They've been hunted, prosecuted, and executed throughout their existence. Professor Charles Xavier and Max Eisenhardt are two central leaders of the mutant rights movement essentially. Xavier, being the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. stand-in, believes in a more non-violent approach to humanity and believes both can coexist peacefully. Whereas Eisenhardt sees humanity as a thing of the past and mutants as the newest state of human evolution. Unfortunately, the horrific past of Max, aka the mutant terrorist Magneto, helped shape this nihilistic mindset of mutant superiority. Being a survivor of one of the world's greatest tragedies, the Holocaust, Magneto has witnessed firsthand the lengths humankind will go to extinguish that of those who are different from the rest. Once old friends turn enemies, the two leaders have formed a schism in the mutant community. Those who side with Xavier's ideals join him and his X-Men, whilst those who choose to follow Magneto become part of his brotherhood. Up until recently, the mutant race had kind of taken a back seat whilst the Inhuman population picked up the mantle of discriminatory allegories. Seemingly due to petty squabbles between film companies, the Inhumans took center forward as they simultaneously grew in numbers. Inhumans are a special sect of our own race, in which a certain fragment of their DNA resides. Though unlike that of the mutants, the origins of these manifestations of spectacular attributes hail from the stars. When man still walked around in rags hunting and gathering, an alien species called the Kree experimented on a select few with intents of creating living weapons to fight in their everlasting galactic race war with the Skrulls. As you might imagine, the experimented individuals passed down their enhanced genes all through the ages, and the Inhumans soon began to advance in a far more rapid rate than that of us mere humans. Soon they discovered that Terrigen, as mentioned earlier, would grant them bizarre and quite useful abilities to better themselves. All throughout their ancient history, there were several groups that separated from the rest, the main being that of the royal family and its subjects who all resided in the city of Attilan. The main members of the royal family we'll focus on are King Black Bolt and Queen Medusa. Fast forwarding a bit will take us to the moment of when Black Bolt destroyed the mighty city in which he ruled and exposed our world to the Terrigen Mist. In rapid succession, people with the hidden Kree gene all throughout Earth were being encased in cocoons and undergoing metamorphosis into Inhumans. When once before the Inhumans were viewed as a small, secluded community, they were now Titans converging on our world, altering our way of life. And finally, this brings us to the xenophobic allegory that the race presented. People in fear of others deriving from different walks of life with different characteristics, starting to sound familiar. The former seclusive nature of the Inhumans helped stage this allegory better than the X-Men ever could, really. Primarily due to the fact that they were always assimilated in normal society. Now, the last few arcs of the Inhumans have been them trying to find their place in the strange new world, whilst also trying to better it to the displeasure of many, it would seem. For better or worse, the Inhumans are returning to the roots of a more galactic scale, whilst the X-Men reclaim their spot in the limelight of diversity. Due to the amount of backlash towards the overabundance of diversity and creation of mantles, as well as the praise DC's been giving recently for their re-emergence of classic story elements, I believe the overall progress that's been made will be set back a peg or two, at least where Marvel is concerned. Whether this is for the best or not, I shall leave that up to your own conclusion.